Hey guys, how's it going? How's it going? So what I would like to talk to today is an idea that I must express that in this moment in time, my keen interest in this topic is not disassociated from utopianism. The term and the concept is called seasteading, and at this present moment, I'm excited by it because I am under the illusion of the utopian fallacy. I think that, or believe right now at this point, this juncture, that seasteading provides a solution to a lot of the world's problems. But in truth, it probably does not. The amount of arable land is finite, as is the amount of unarable land. Most of the usable land on planet Earth, as of today, March 29th, 2026, most of the land, I would argue 100% of it, is laid claim to by some political entity. In other words, all of planet Earth, all of the land on planet Earth is colonized by humans with their own, each one with their own particular political administration and ideology. Further, the oceans are partially conquered or colonized. Each terrestrial country that is coastal probably lays claim to some belt of water. But if you were to sail past that belt of water, you would enter what is called international waters. Let's see how much the percentage of international, let's see the area. Let's check what the total area is of international waters. Okay, so the Convention on the High Seas was used as a foundation for the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, signed in 1982, which recognized exclusive economic zones extending 200 nautical miles from the baseline where coastal states have sovereign rights to the water column and seafloor, as well as the natural resources found there. The high seas, which is what extends beyond that border, make up 50% of the surface area of the planet and cover over 2/3 of the ocean. Okay, that's a lot of unclaimed land. And I think at the heart of this idea, or let's say this again, at the heart of seasteading is that unclaimed water area should be claimed and can be claimed today using today's available modern technologies. So, what is seasteading? Let's get to the heart of it. So, seasteading is the creation of permanent dwellings in international waters, so-called seasteads that are independent of established governments. So, it's this idea of colonizing, or personally colonizing the international waters. No structure on the high seas has yet been created and recognized as a sovereign state. Proposed structures have included modified cruise ships, refitted oil platforms, and custom-built floating islands. Let's have a look at this cool picture. So this is a picture, it's some sort of rendering of something that is, there's something liminal about it, or just strange the way, I don't understand what's going on, but it's I don't know, I have a lot of emotions when I see this. It's modern. I like that there's plants. It's cool to me that we would create a man-made artificial island that has all these plants on it and biology. What I find exciting by this is that, people are always, white guys, this is coming off wrong, but there's this massive problem that seems to exist. And the problem is the colonizer versus the colonized. The story of the United States, it's a story of people that had religious persecutions, right? Yeah, it was the Pilgrims were English settlers who traveled to North America on the Mayflower. They came to this land. People were living on that land, Native Americans. But that did not stop them from building small colonies and cultivating the land and living there. Fast forward it to 2026. That was in 1614. Now it's 2026, and there was many clashes between those native populations. Other examples of this are South Africans in South Africa, or more recent, the establishment of the Jewish state and the influx of many Jewish Jews from Europe into what was British Mandate Palestine, and the conflicts there that are echoing to this day. So this alternative idea of seasteading stands in this strange middle ground, because it would be an act of colonization, people just moving out into some international part of the ocean and living there, but it's it's not coming on the expense of a human population that's living there. It's not even coming on the expense of a native, like terrestrial fauna that you have there. You're literally, staking a claim to a volume of salt water, and that's kind of exciting because populations are growing, and as the sprawl of human settlement is to the detriment of the ecosystem. I mean, I've heard it argued by none other than David. What's his name again? I've heard it. Yeah. So what's his name? David Attenborough. I've heard it argued by none other than David Attenborough that a good future of humanity is when humans are living on megastructures, such that they are, highly dense, on a high density location. So having very concentrated human centers rather than sprawl. Why? Because the more dense human settlement becomes, the more land can just do its thing, and be natural and go and take the natural course of evolution. And I guess a step further on this idea, this vision of future Earth is let's just abandon land altogether. Let's together as humans move onto these marine-based artificial lands and let terrestrial Earth just take its course and heal. I kind of like that. So that's one. So I think there might be an there might be like an ecological argument to have had here. But these are artificially constructed. So on balance, I don't know if you're really interested in the sort of carbon footprint of a artificial megastructure type seastead. I don't know if that's on balance healthier than just building a high rise on terrestrial Earth. I don't know. That would need to have a scrupulous look at the engineering plans. But I think the other side of the argument of just abandoning, not having an actual footprint on terrestrial Earth rather than having a footprint on some sort of volume of international water, that's an argument. So you're for sure not going to be influencing or hurting Earth, scarring Earth, if you will, if you are choosing to live on a seastead. So that's one. And two is that I think it could allow for a kind of a new age, essentially a new age of unbound countries, personalized countries. Like let's take the liberal idea to its kind of logical conclusion. Man is so free that he can literally start his own country and start his own little community, dependent of like terrestrial land. Very exciting to me. But of course, you're living in the middle of international waters. You don't have access to oil. You don't have access to timber or concrete or any resources other than what's directly underneath you in the water column, which could be kilometers. Who knows? So there's a resource constraint on a seastead like this, and it would have to participate to some extent, at least in the beginning, in the founding, with terrestrial Earth to make sure it has the resources to create the seastead. But once you have this hypothetical seastead going, you could have like a completely independent entity that's really not bound by the constraints that terrestrial countries have. And if this country doesn't pose a threat and isn't trying to be imperialist and exert influence outside of the borders of its seastead, then why cause it harm? I don't see why countries would cause it harm. It's an exciting idea. It's not utopian, but it's exciting. I don't think it's the end all be all, but it's something that I would not be surprised that would happen in 10,000 years down the line or 1,000 years down the line when there's perhaps a very large population. That would be a way to mitigate it and spread, sort of give more room for people to live.